We don't like to think about it, but planning for your death is one of the necessities in life. A well-constructed estate plan is designed to protect your assets and save your family and friends a great deal of time, hassles and heartache when the inevitable occurs. The structure of your estate plan will vary according to your personal circumstances. So let's take a look at some areas you may need to consider. Family with young children. There can be a range of things to consider, including nominating your preferred custodian. How are the ongoing expenses of your children going to be paid for? What's the best way to hold assets for your children that minimises tax and protects your assets? Family with adult children. What happens if one of your adult children gets divorced after your death? Will some of your assets be at risk of being transferred to a non-family member? Do you plan on putting some money aside for any grandkids? Previous relationships or marriages. You may need to make some provisions in your will for children from previous marriages, especially if they're still financially dependent on you. Don't forget to update your will too. Non-estate assets. Assets that are owned by family trusts, super funds and private companies may not be able to be dealt with under your will. You may need to take additional steps to ensure these assets get to who they need to. If you're a small business owner, do you have a written buy-sell agreement in place, and has this been funded properly? Beneficiaries with special needs. If you have a beneficiary with special needs, have you made the right arrangements for their ongoing personal and financial care? Do you need to arrange special investment vehicles for them? What happens if you are the main carer for them? Bequests to a charity. If this is close to your heart and the amount is expected to be sizable, you may need to set up a specific trust or other structure for this. As you can see, there are many estate planning considerations, which is why it's important to plan properly and early.
Thanks for meeting up, Dad. What do you want to talk about?
Look, son, I've been talking to your mum, and we want you to manage our money if something happens and we can't. You've done really well for yourself, and we couldn't be prouder. So, what do you think?
That's a big decision to make, Dad. Have you talked to a solicitor about this? Do you understand the responsibilities that person you want to appoint as your power of attorney has?
A power of what?
A power of attorney, Dad. I understand where you're coming from, and I'd love to help, but this needs to be sorted out properly. If we don't have a power of attorney in place, the bank and your super fund won't let me help.
Okay, son, I didn't realize that. Your mum and I thought we just had to tell you, and it was all good.
Let's make a time to meet with my financial advisor. I reckon he'll be able to help us out, and he can probably also put us in touch with a solicitor who can help. Ultimately, the decision will be yours, but it's good to understand how much power you'll be giving me.
We'd appreciate that, Jeff. Thanks.
Aged care. What are your options? There are 3 options for aged care categorised by the level and type of care required: home and community care, home care packages, and residential aged care homes. Home and community care is for aged persons requiring a minimal amount of support and assistance, including help with domestic duties such as gardening, housekeeping and meals. Providers may include family, friends, community aides and social networks. No aged care assessment is required. The home care packages involve family members, along with the person receiving care, to determine the extent of care needed and the level of family and community involvement in the aged person's day-to-day needs. There are 4 levels of home care: basic, low, intermediate and high-level care. Services offered through home care packages include domestic and personal care, as well as support services, transportation, nursing and clinical support. Eligibility is determined after undergoing an approved assessment. The aged person may be provided care at home, live with family members, or may live with a friend under a home care package. Services may be performed by a combination of family members, friends, community-based support networks and professional service agencies. There are costs associated with home care packages, and the funding varies by level of care. Home care package costs are solely income-based and not subject to an asset test. Package costs do not take into account personal assets or home valuation. The final option is a residential aged care home. This may be a solution for aged adults when home care is no longer an available option. Residential aged care homes can be a temporary situation or maybe a permanent living arrangement. A residential care solution provides the most basic of care needs, complete 24-hour nursing care and medically required clinical observation. Costs associated with residential care homes are contingent upon the aged person's income and the value of their assets. Potential costs include a means-tested care fee, a basic daily fee, an accommodation payment, and any other fees for optional services. Some people may only pay the basic daily fee, and the federal government may pay a part or all of the means-tested care fees and the accommodation payment. There are annual and lifetime caps on the means-tested care fees. If you're unsure about these options and how they will affect you or a loved one, please contact us. Update your will. Everyone should have a will. Maybe you think that because you're healthy there's no rush. But for the sake of your family and friends, it's better to be safe than sorry. Let's have a look at just how simple making a will can be. First, you need to decide on an executor. An executor files your will with the court upon your death. An executor can be a trusted friend, family member, or a professional trustee. Next, if you have children under the age of 18, you will also have to name a legal guardian. Remember, you'll need to discuss this with your potential choice and include a possible backup just in case. You will also need to make an inventory of all your assets and name your beneficiaries. This also applies with the beneficiary designations on super accounts and life insurance policies. It's best to keep the beneficiary designations on these accounts and your will in sync to avoid any confusion. A complete list of accounts will also make life easier for your family. List bank accounts, investments, super and insurance. Ongoing. You will have to periodically review and update your will. You would need to make changes if, for example, an heir or guardian passed away, a birth, wedding, or a divorce in the family. You may also need to update parts of your will if future tax laws change. And finally, make sure you tell someone where your will is. If your will is lost, it may be assumed that you didn't have one. If you die without a will, your assets will be distributed in accordance with the law. This varies depending on the state or territory you live in. If you're ready to get your will sorted, remember, we're here to help. Please feel free to contact us for further advice.